place called Place d'Armes. Place d'Armes served as a military drill field. French and Spanish military that was settled inside this area. Inside the center of the square, there's a 30,000-pound bronze statue of Major General Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson served as the 7th president of the United States and also the battle hero on the Battle of New Orleans. That's why he was famous here. 1815, he led the U.S. forces to victory over the British. Becoming victorious in that Battle of New Orleans, they honored Andrew Jackson in the square as Jackson Square Park. In 1851 is when it became Jackson Square Park. It was also home to a public execution ground, where they were executed by firing squad, by hanging. The gallows were located just about in the center of the square where the statue of Andrew Jackson sits. The church all the way out to the rear, that's the St. Louis Cathedral Catholic Church. Oldest operating Catholic cathedral inside of North America, inside the United States. It opened up here on Christmas Eve, 1794. It's the 3rd church on that site. First one was constructed up by France in 1719. Shortly after the city was established in 1718. That one was lost in 1722 with a hurricane that impacted New Orleans. The second one was built up by the Spanish. That one was lost in the Great Fire in 1788. And that's the 3rd one also by the Spanish by a guy named Don Almonaster. Constructed that church and opened it up Christmas Eve 1794. The building to the left of the church, that one is the Cabildo. 1803 on the 2nd floor of the Cabildo is where the closing chapters of the Louisiana Purchase was signed by President Thomas Jefferson. He was assisted by James Monroe, where they closed that deal on selling to the territory for $15 million, roughly about 4 cents an acre. Is one of the greatest land deals to ever take place in the U.S. history. One over to the right side of the church, as we pass, you can see that one. That one is the Presbytere. The Presbytere used to house the priests, archdiocese, and archbishops in the cathedral. That place now is a Hurricane Katrina Museum on the 1st floor and a Mardi Gras Museum on the 2nd floor. It's like $8 to get into either of the museums on each side of the church. Over to the left of us is the Jackson Brewery facility. That was established back in 1891 as one of the largest brewing facilities here in the city of New Orleans. The place was owned by a guy named David Jackson. Back up in 1974, the city closed the place down. Now opened up as a shopping mall area and the food courts on the 2nd floor of the South Tower. And the condos are all way overpriced. If you ever want to rent some of those condos up here, they ran about $10,000 to $15,000 a month to lease out some of those condos on the Jacks building. Now out to the left of us, behind the Jacks building, runs the Mississippi River. River runs all the way from Lake Itasca, Minnesota to where it ends here in southern Louisiana to the Gulf of Mexico. It ranges about 2,350 miles long from up north where the Mississippi River starts to where it ends here in southern Louisiana to the Gulf of Mexico. The deepest point inside the river, inside the New Orleans area, is beneath the Greater New Orleans Bridge, Preston City Connection, some people know it as. 240 foot deep beneath that bridge inside the river at the deepest point here inside the city of New Orleans. The land that's on the opposite side of the river is known as the West Bank side of New Orleans, and this is the East Bank side. If you look across to the opposite side of the river, the neighborhood that's on the opposite side of the levee is the only historical part of New Orleans that sits on the opposite side of the river, and that's called the Algiers Point area, and that's one of the neighborhoods that's right on the opposite side of the Mississippi River behind the levees. All the way up ahead of us in the center of Decatur Street, there's a statue that's hiding behind the trees. That statue is a statue of the founder of New Orleans. His name was Jean-Baptiste Lemoyne-Serre de Bienville. He was a French-Canadian guy who was given a land grant to establish the city, and he established New Orleans on May 7, 1718, is when the city was founded and established as a colony of France. The original colony was located right where Jackson Square Park was, where we started the tour. It was the original heart of the French Quarter and still is the heart of the city here inside the quarters today. French Quarter runs 13 blocks long, 7 blocks wide. From Canal Street, which is all the way up front where the light is turning red, it starts there and it runs 13 blocks back to Esplanade Avenue. From Decatur Street, it goes sideways 7 blocks over to North Rampart. Everything inside that area is considered as the New Orleans French Quarter. Hold it, girl, hold it. When Bienville came here to settle, on May 7, 1718, this was when the city of New Orleans was founded. This city received that name, New Orleans, in honor of the Duke of Orleans. Duke of Orleans is the region over in the region of France that's known as the Orleans region, and they named this city in honor of that Duke of Orleans region. Here in St. Louis Street, they have the Johnny's Po' Boy shop. Inside the French Quarter, they're like one of the known po' boy shops. A lot of folks come over to get po' boys, gumbo, jambalaya, red beans and rice. And over to the left of us at the New Orleans School of Cooking, they cook all of those type of dishes of the Creole and Cajun cuisines, all hands-on with some of the cooks that's from the area. Been in business since 1980. Now the Creoles and the Cajuns, they also were a descent of people that lived through this area. The Creoles were firstborn children of a generation with the side of a colony. The lady was settled throughout Louisiana when it was colonized, and she would have kids, and her kids is the first generation born to the area here at the colony, and her kids would have a descent of French or Spanish. They would consider them as Creoles throughout the Louisiana colony. The Cajuns were originally known as Acadians. The Acadians actually migrated from Acadian Canada and Nova Scotia. Once British would conquer those areas of Canada and they were forced out to relocate, the Cajuns, some of them would migrate and settle throughout this area and be known as Cajuns for short, but their original name was known as Acadians. To the right is the old Napoleon's house, 1797, when this structure was built upon site. This place was supposed to be home to Napoleon, which will never make it to the United States. The place operates as a restaurant here since 1797 when the structure was built, but a restaurant for 100 years now at the location. And they have the muffaletta sandwiches, Creole and Cajun cuisines are also awesome there. The building to the left of us has Sparrows. This one was known as the Old Slave Exchange Building. In 1788 when that one was constructed, and that's the one where they would host all of the slave auctions that took place here in the city of New Orleans. The top side of that structure back in 1814 is when President Andrew Jackson met with John Lafitte. John Lafitte was a pirate who would also conquer and occupy a place in the French Quarter that we'll pass by later on in the tour. But they met there prior to the year of that battle taking place in 1815. In 1814, they met on the second floor to have a meeting about that battle that was the following year. It was the War of 1812, but that battle was just the last battle fought when they defeated the British in the Chalmette, Louisiana. To the left is the old Civil Court building, now Louisiana Supreme Court, which is the 4th Circuit Appeals Court here in the city. Between the windows, those circular areas of architecture here is called the Ionic style architecture. And that's those circular areas between the windows. These two white column posters here, those are called the Doric style architectural columns that you will see throughout the French Quarter. You see a lot of those that's supposed to roof fronting of the structures that you see here in the Garden District part of New Orleans. To the left of us, these are the beautiful magnolia trees. Magnolia trees are the Mississippi State tree and Louisiana State tree. Those magnolias, a lot of folks like the flowers that they blossom out. Those magnolia flowers have a smell that they give off. So here in the city of New Orleans, it was a colony of France. In 1718 and 1762. In 1762 is when the Spanish government would come throughout the area and take over ruling under the colony of Spain. Under that Spanish ruling, New Orleans served as the capital of the Louisiana province until 1803. Baton Rouge, Louisiana is the capital now, but under the Spanish from 1762 to 1803, New Orleans would serve as the capital of the Louisiana province. After the Spanish was in ruling, 1803, France came back in for a second term for about 6 weeks before the Louisiana Purchase would actually take place. And William C.C. Claiborne, we have a street that's called Claiborne Street that's here in New Orleans. As you keep straight, you will run into Claiborne. And William C.C. Claiborne was the governor of New Orleans that overseen the transfer from Louisiana to the United States. And he's buried inside the St. Louis Cemetery number 1, which has been existing here since 1789 when that cemetery will come about. Originally named in honor of King Louis from France, King Louis XIV. This building is Antoine's. 1840 when Antoine's first opened up. They're within the 5th generation of their family. It's the oldest family-owned restaurant that exists here inside the French Quarter area. That's within that family. Ahead of us, we have Bourbon Street. Bourbon Street area is part of the sightseeing part of the tour. We're going to go down for a little ways. Then we're going to pick back up on the culture of the city and the history once we get to the rear of Bourbon Street. Bourbon Street is known for Mardi Gras. It's one of the prime peak seasons for Bourbon Street is throughout the Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras did not start in New Orleans like a lot of folks think it did. It started in Mobile, Alabama first. Then in 1856 is when the tradition and culture will come to this area. It is a Catholic celebration of going into the Lent season. The Catholics will celebrate. Fat Tuesday is Mardi Gras Day. Then Ash Wednesday follows into the Lent season for the Catholic religion.
If we're gonna come to any venues.
That 4 Point Sheraton Hotel to the left of us, back in 1859, it served as the old French Opera House. And it's when French opera music made its debut here in the city of New Orleans. It costed $118,000 in 1850 to establish this building here, which is now the 4 Point Sheraton Hotel. The plaque, we have a bronze plaque out to the left of us. That's what the flag talks about in the old French Opera House back in 1859. Two of the main founding cultures of music that's here inside of the area is the blues and the jazz music. That music always generate here inside of an area known as Armstrong Park, Congo Square, which is located on North Rampart. Tropical Isles here, the home of the hand grenade drinks. Y'all, any of y'all get the hand grenade sometime? Or Tropical Isles? Home of the huge ass beers, the 2-for-1. They have a lot of folks like beer, 2-for-1 beers, and the huge ass beers. And then we have famous historic recorded Two Sisters restaurant since 1832. This place was once known as like the red light district area of New Orleans. She said, need weed money. Oh man.
All right.
Pat O'Brien's, they're the home of the hurricane drinks. The hurricanes, as you see a lot of people talk about the hurricanes, alcohol, the beverage. They're the inventors of the hurricanes inside the city of Pat O'Brien's. They have the dueling pianos and the courtyard area is pretty awesome to check out there at Pat O'Brien's also. Beneath the Blue Louisiana State flag, it's a great place for jazz music here inside of the French Quarter. If you want to check out some great jazz music, awesome place to check out. Cat's Meow, that's where the karaoke bar is here to the left of us. 7-Eleven Bourbon Heat is also another great place for music and food here inside of the Coming up to the right of us is going to be the backside of the St. Louis Cathedral. Back in 1987, Pope John Paul II visited that church as when it became a minor basilica inside the United States. There are 14 priests, archbishops, and archdioceses that are actually buried beneath the altars of the church. To the left of us at the Funky Pirate is one of the great blues clubs. Big Al Colson is one of the great blues musicians that play here throughout the area. On the corner, all the way out to the left, is going to be Marie Laveau's House of Voodoo Shop. Have you ever been in a voodoo shop?
Yes.
Marie Laveau's? Okay. Marie Laveau, she was a free color lady here. Marie Laveau, she was considered as a Creole. Her dad was one of the guys who owned a plantation of slaves. Her mom was one of the slaves, which made her a free color lady here in the city of New Orleans. Will be known as a Creole lady, real light-skinned lady. They would have either descent of French or Spanish way back then. Now she's buried inside the St. Louis Cemetery No. 1, also the oldest above-ground cemetery in the city. You can go into this place and do palm readings and different things that would take place all the way in that back room. They charge like $60 to do palm readings and stuff inside the place. It's supposed to be like one of the best ladies at doing that type of stuff. Armstrong Park, all the way out to the left of the arch. That's where Louis Armstrong statue is located, the Mahalia Jackson. Yeah. That place was the original birthplace of blues and jazz music when it all started here. It all started inside of that square and also the voodoo culture. On Sundays here throughout the French Quarter, back throughout the colonial period, it picked up that name of Congo Square Park because the Congo tribe was one of the main tribes that was here. On Sundays, they would be freed from work and they would be allowed to go into that square, and that's where they would practice their culture and tradition. The jazz, blues all originated there, and also the voodooism culture would generate there of the African and Haitian tribes there inside the New Orleans French Quarter. The neighborhood that's located on the backside of that is called the Treme. The Treme neighborhood is known as the oldest African-American neighborhood inside the United States. That area is the only area where the free color people were allowed to settle in on their own in New Orleans with their families, was inside that Treme neighborhood. It's also known for the historical culture of its jazz and musicians that will come from out of the area of the Treme. Here to the right of us coming up, we're going to have in the next block down is going to be the shotgun style home. Then we have the French Creole cottage, and then the oldest bar that's in the United States. The city of New Orleans has the city color coding audience on all of the properties inside the French Quarter Historical District of the color coding of these properties. No matter if you buy this home for $5 or $10 million and you own it, you cannot change it to whatever colors you want. You have to comply with City Hall. They only issue you a permit to return the approved colors that they have on the list over at City Hall to the structures within inside the French Quarter. All of the shutters that you see throughout the structures on the front side of the properties was all weather shutters. The source of hurricanes that we obtain here throughout the city of New Orleans, it will help protect the values that people will have throughout the areas of their properties here throughout the New Orleans area. And it was a symbolization of the French culture, architecture of the French doors. To the right of us here, where the police sign is the shotgun style home. Top side of the shotgun style home, you have the chimney systems aligned from the front center line of the structure to the rear. Where that front window area is known as the transom. The transom, along with the high cathedral ceilings, where all of the hot air generates up into the cathedral ceilings, and it would escape out of those hatches on the top side. All of those are not fireplaces. They maybe have two of them, one on each side of the duplex of the shotgun. And on the front doors of the structure and the rear doors of the property is where the alignment of it comes. The straightness is where the name of a shotgun style home comes from. Said you open that front door, open the back door, and fire your shotgun from the porch through the structure. The bullets travel through, exit the rear without touching the infrastructure, and that's where the name of a shotgun home comes from. It was cultured homes that was brought in by the Haitians after the Haitian Revolution would take place. They would migrate and settle throughout this area and bring the culture of that home to suit many families here without taking up much space, and that's why they're long at its narrows, point from front to back, the way you can fit more multiple homes throughout the area. The Feast Blacksmith Shop Bar. This is the oldest bar structure in the United States. 1722 when the building was built up. Operated as a blacksmith shop since 1772. Was occupied by a pirate, John Lafitte. Top side of this place is known as the French Creole Cottage. You can tell the difference between the Creole cottages and the shotguns from the roof. The windows areas are called the domers. You're gonna have two on the rooftop, and you're gonna have one chimney that aligns in the center line between the domers. And then in the inside, see how dark it is in the inside? They don't have no electricity lights. They kept this place as original as possible since 1722. It's been on site, said to be haunted with ghosts, spirits from a lot of the executions that took place in the courtyard area. I have never seen any ghosts and spirit as long as I've been passing here. When you have too many alcoholic beverages, you might start seeing anything inside the French Quarter. Huh?
There's no place in New Orleans where he was buried.
Where he was buried? No, he have a place on the West Bank area, on the West Bank of New Orleans.
He was buried in New Orleans?
No, I don't know if he was buried here, but I'm saying, and they have a place on the West Bank that's called the Lafitte area, and that was the area that he occupied from the West Bank. And that area, they have a waterway that goes all the way to the Gulf of Mexico called the Battery Pass Waterway. It's where present-day Grand Isle, Louisiana is located at. And inside the area, they had a fort that was called Fort Livingston, and that's where he fought the British troops off at when they tried to intrude into the territory in that War of 1812. Yep, and then that's the area that say he have all the treasures and all of that stuff buried inside of that area. And they do a lot of the swamp tours over in that area now because there's a lot of